Does yours do this? Because if it does, stay tuned. We're gonna get it. What's up, everyone? So we just saw a machine completely bogged down. You know, there's a couple different reasons for this. This particular reason is because it's out of tune. I did a video on replacing a filter or carburetor, stuff like that. In fact, the old carburetor is right there. But a lot of times, your stock one, or if you replace it, it's out of tune. Your stock one can just go out of tune, out of use, maybe, you know, just the vibrations over the course of time and whatnot. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go over how to get it back in tune. So the very first thing that we saw wrong was there was blue smoke pumping out of the machine. Now, the first thing you want to check is if your machine has it. Now, this isn't just for steel. This is for all of them. But steels in particular have a problem with plugging up the spark arrestor in your exhaust. So before we do absolutely anything, we're going to take it off. Yours could be different. Mine just takes a socket and it comes right out. However yours is, take out the spark arrestor. It's a little screen and we'll be back. So here's mine. It's not bad. Not 100% clean, but it's not bad. But if yours is at all plugged, you're going to want to clean it. The easiest way is with a propane torch or MAP gas or anything like that. Carb cleaner and a toothbrush, whatever you want to do. Whatever you do, just don't damage it. Don't really want to take it out. You especially don't want to do that because if you do, technically you're not supposed to, but you know, only you know if you do that. Well, hold on there. Over 90% of you, according to YouTube, are not currently subscribed. You're watching this video, but you're currently not subscribed. So I'm going to welcome you to subscribe at the end if this helped you out. I work on a lot of machines, so maybe the machine you're watching is going to be something you own, but who knows? Maybe you own a generator, a pressure washer, a big mower, a chainsaw, a variety of things. The only way to know if I'm going to fix it in the future is by subscribing, and maybe I get to the one that you own and can help you out then too. So I welcome you to subscribe, put a thumbs up if it does help you out. Back to your normal video. My spark arrestor is clean and installed. Now, if your port is blocked, that's not going to really help us just clean the spark arrestor, but majority of the time it's just a spark arrestor. You're going to want to do that because if that is plugged, it's like getting choked from both ends and you can't properly tune it. And if you do tune it with that plugged, then it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse because it's just not going to be a proper mix. So next thing we're going to focus on are these adjustment screws. Now, somewhere, in fact, let's get a different carb out. Now, there's always going to be 2 or 3 or potentially 4. Those are really, really rare. I only saw maybe 1 or 2 times. The majority of the time it's either 3 or potentially even 2. If it's 2, it's even easier. But there's always going to be one for the idle set. That's going to be next to the throttle. You're going to know that because it will single-handedly be touching it, and that's going to keep the throttle open a little bit. That is important, but that's not our main focus on it. So if this was installed, the engine would be here and the air filter would be right here. Knowing that, the one that's closest to the engine is the low screw. The low screw is set for idle. You want it to be lean, but not too lean. You also don't really want it rich. So if it's rich, it's going to be pumping out blue smoke. If it's lean, it's just going to die or rev up really high or fall when you try to give it a throttle. Next one's the high. That's going to be your high screw. So I'm going to explain what I'm going to do because it's going to be a little difficult to follow. I'm going to try to get you in there, but everything's going to be jumbling. It's not going to be the easiest thing to record. When I first turned it on, if we looked at it correctly, it was pumping out blue smoke at idle. Now the idle itself seemed to be a tad low. So I'm going to twist this screw in about a half a turn, maybe even a full turn, because this one, like I said, only sets the speed, has nothing to do with fuel. Then once I know I have it revving up to the point where it will at least stay running, I'm going to lean this one out because we have smoke coming out of the muffler. Now, Some of these carbs will have a special type of driver. If you type in 2-cycle adjustment driver on Amazon search, eBay, you'll come with like a kit that comes with like 8 of them. Buy that. It's really cheap and inexpensive. You could potentially even just take off the cap if there is a cap and grind in a slot and just use a flathead. Just realize those are steel, and when you grind that type of steel, you're going to get sparks. So you're going to be putting sparks next to something that controls fuel. Probably not the smartest or safest decision, but I'll leave that up to you. In addition to that, not all of them will even let you adjust it because they have these little stops on them. Those stops can be removed. Break them off with a pair of pliers, and majority of the time you'll have like a flathead or something else on there. I mean, majority of the time you just need like a normal screwdriver. Mine on the new carb just takes a flathead. You don't need anything else, no Phillips, no nothing. On the stock steel, this we're looking at, it does only take just a normal Phillips head. So look to see what you need. If you don't see a Phillips head, then look for a flathead, which is what I have here. If you don't see either one, buy that driver set. The driver set will save you a lot of time. And if you don't see anything, break off the caps. Now that we have that done, to lean something out, which means to make more air and less fuel, you're tightening. The looser these screws go, the more fuel they let in. So if it's too rich, like we know it is, we need to turn this one in. At that point, I turn until I can tell it's about to die. And then I open it up. And I keep opening it very slowly until I can hear the engine really start to just sound like it's running really, really good. And then I lean it up, or excuse me, richen it up a little bit more. And when I mean a little, it could be as little as 1/8 of a turn, 1/16 of a turn. Basically, I want to hear that engine change noise. You hear it running very, very smoothly, and then when you richen it up, it's going to change a little bit. I just want a very, very small change. At that moment in time, I hold down the throttle, and I do the same thing for the high. If it is just blaringly fast, it's probably okay. I'm going to richen it up until I can hear that blaring fast RPM noise start to tone down a bit and kind of chug a little, and then I lean it up because I don't want to chug, but I also don't want it to be blaring fast, because if it's too fast and too lean, when it majority of people would assume where you want to keep it, it's actually really bad for the engine. It's going to run pretty hot. So when it's chugging, I'm going to lean it up until I can hear it stop chugging, but it's not the highest RPM I can get, but it also sounds good. Hopefully that helps. I'm going to get started. That explanation, if you see what I'm doing, I might jump back and forth. I'll try to say it. It's loud. My mic is a mic. It's going to pick up all the noise, including the engine. I've yet to find a mic that only listens to my voice. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started for everyone's viewing pleasure, because I said it was a little low. We're going to twist this 3/4 of a turn. That's the idle. And for this one, I'm going to, because it's rich, I'm going to go about a little under 1/4. Oh, excuse me, it was right there. I need to tighten it. A little under 1/4. I don't know anything about the high, so I'm not going to do a single thing with that. We can deal with that later. But I sped it up because I know it's slow already, and I know it's rich, so I leaned it out by twisting it in. And hopefully we don't have to do a whole lot more, but you know what I'm going to do after. Let's give it a pull. I have my screwdriver ready. It's on. It is warm. I forgot to mention, you should always do this warm. If it's cold, you're not going to tune it right. This has been running for at least a couple minutes, and it's fine. Still smoke. See how it stuttered? Wow, it's nice and smooth. I'm going to leave it at the smooth and go a little more. There we go. Like a 1/16 of a turn. And there you have it. If you notice, I leaned it out until it started to die, and then I richened it up. It ran pretty smooth. I richened it up a hair more, and so it's still running smooth, but not as smooth. And then I went to the high. The high was pretty decent. I turned it in until it started to die. Then I richened it up until it started blowing smoke. Then I leaned it out till the smoke went away, but it wasn't blaring. That's the key part with the high. It's not blaring really fast. At that point, you let it go. It revs up smooth, goes through the full power band, no issues, and there's little to no smoke. There might be some residual oil in the muffler. That's completely normal. If you are out of tune, there might just be some excess fuel or oil that's been sitting there from like the previous season. I think that's what we have. The best thing to do though is keep your screwdriver handy. Go use it for like 10-15 minutes, and while you're using it, make those final adjustments. Majority of the time it's going to be on the low. Just know if you do adjust the low, it can potentially affect the high. Not all that much, but it can. Unless you're making pretty big adjustments, it's not going to affect the whole lot on the high end, but it can. So if you adjust the low a hair, just know you very well might be needing to, let's say for instance you richen the low, you might need to lean out the high to get to that same mixture level. One's more rich, one is more lean. If you kind of get them about to the same point, they kind of cancel each other out to full throttle. So other than that, the only other final bit is I like to have a low idle. It kind of makes things harder to start, but it's a little better on fuel, and I just don't like to have things blaring. So I keep mine a little low. I might lower that one a tad. Whatever you do, if yours has a clutch, which hopefully yours does, don't have it on idle so high where the clutch is actually engaging and the shaft is spinning. You don't want that to happen, because then you can never really turn it off. If you can never really turn it off, then that's just kind of dangerous. I mean, it's a weed eater, it has like plastic line flipping around. That can still be at least a painful experience if you accidentally hit someone or yourself. Just make sure that's not engaging, and you could have a barely engaged, just kind of, kick it every now and then. That's okay, kind of like a chainsaw, but keep it a little lower. If you see it kicking, go a little lower. You're not going to need to just have the engine, revving up really, really high at idle. But it's your machine. I'm going to let you be the final judge on that one. But until then, I gave you this information on how to adjust a weed eater. When does this happen? Well, over time, it just works its way out, like I said. The vibration of the engine, those screws, they can move. And when they move, they generally don't move into a better adjustment. So, you might have to do it that way. After you do a tune-up, you should definitely do one, because perhaps the machine itself just kind of worked its way out of tune over time, and then the tune-up it's kind of pushed it over the edge where it's not going to be running very well. So definitely do this after you do a tune-up, just to make sure it's running at peak performance and efficiency. Or if you ever replace a carburetor or pretty much anything in the fuel system, if you work on a carb, if you replace the carb, rebuild it, whatever, you're going to want to tune it. I'm going to leave you with that. Follow me on Instagram, it's FallenJoe101. If you like what you see, keep watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If this helped you out, put a thumbs up, and I'll catch you on the next one. Have a good day.